right, the Lord be with you. Let us pray. Disturb us, Lord, when we are too well pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true because we have dreamed too little, when we arrive safely because we sailed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wider seas where storms will show your mastery, where losing sight of land we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizons of our hopes and to push into the future in strength, courage, hope, and love. Amen. Well, those are words from a prayer, a poem attributed to the great English explorer, Sir Francis Drake. And I chose them for an opening prayer today because it strikes me that the two programs we're about to hear from, first of all, our Cathedral Giving by Design program, and then the wonderful beneficiary for this year's Cathedral Giving by Design effort, are both groups, both organizations that are really pushing back the horizons of hope. Some of you know that Cathedral Giving by Design is the latest incarnation, the new version of our storied, magnificent Cathedral Antique Show, which for so many years has been a source of goodness and hope throughout the wider community. And under the direction of Andy O'Brien and Catherine Howell and a wonderful team of parishioners, this cathedral has been re-envisioning what the next step for the Cathedral Antique Show will be in order to meet the challenges and the needs of this post-pandemic world. And so the result of that is Cathedral Giving by Design. And it's a wonderful, wonderful new effort. And as I said, Andy O'Brien and Catherine Howell are this year's chairs. And so I'm going to turn it over to them so that they can tell you more about what's happening and how you can get involved in this great outreach effort for the Cathedral of St. Philip.
And thank you so much for being here. We are very excited about this next chapter of the Cathedral Antique Show, Cathedral Giving by Design. And I'm Catherine Howell, and this is Andy O'Brien. And as Julia said, we're the co-chairs of this year's 2023 Cathedral Giving by Design. So please mark your calendars. It is January 20th, 21st, 2023. And the Cathedral Giving by Design is going to be a 2-day event that will include a fabulous welcome home party and auction on Friday night. And then on Saturday morning, we will have a designer panel followed by a tour of homes. And now we would like to introduce our honorary chair for the 2023 event. She's a wonderful parishioner, volunteer, and has a long history in involvement with the show. She's a former chair of the Antique Show, and she is such a presence of the cathedral. So we're excited that Mary Mercer is the honorary chair of the Cathedral Giving by Design.
So we, at Cathedral Giving by Design, we have two sort of main goals. Some of you have heard us talk about this already, but the first one is that we want this event to be something that kind of brings parishioners together, our community together, to have a fun experience, a fun couple of days with a purpose. And so that's our second goal, which is we wanted to find an organization that we really believed in and that we felt were doing really important work in our local community, and we want to really support them generously and raise a lot of money for them. So we are thrilled that they are here today, so you can hear some more from them. But to give you a little bit of background on how we selected our beneficiary, we had a beneficiary committee that spent a couple of months. Julie Reef and Caroline Wallace led that committee, and they had close to 25 applicants that they spent a couple of months interviewing and doing site visits and researching. And we all sort of enthusiastically chose the Women's Resource Center to end domestic violence. So we are so excited to have them here today for you guys to hear from them and hear about the important work they're doing. We have Jean Douglas here. She's the executive director, and Amber Harris, who is the director of development. So please give them a warm cathedral welcome.
Good morning. Wow, 25 applicants. We made it. Thank you so much for choosing us. I feel like we're part of the family now. We've been here a few times. We were at the grand announcement, and Andy and Catherine came to our fundraiser back in the spring, and we've been meeting and talking, and so we're excited. Our board of directors is very excited. I'm very excited. We know that this is an awesome opportunity for our organization, and so we're looking forward to getting to know the rest of you. I just want to tell you a little bit about the Women's Resource Center and how we came to be. I'm going to give you our history, our story, and then Amber is going to share the rest of the information. So in June of 1985, Gwendolyn Turnbow, who was a woman who worked in human resources at DeKalb County, had a long history of domestic violence with her abuser. He had spent time in prison for abusing her, but would come back out of prison and continue to look for her and harm her. This went back and forth for a few times over a number of years. And so in June of 1985, he was released. And the district attorney, the criminal justice system had surrounded Gwendolyn to the extent where they were doing almost a 24-hour watch around her home. Well, on this particular morning, the police left, and sure enough, Joel Brummett was outside watching the home, and he managed to bring her out of the home and do what she had been so afraid of him doing for a number of years. And he murdered her in June of 1985. Gwendolyn had done everything that people say a woman who is fleeing domestic violence should do. She used every single criminal justice avenue that there was available to her. The community had surrounded her. She left. She was divorced. They were no longer married. But yet and still, he managed to take her life on that day. And so that changed the course of so many lives, as you can imagine. She had a son and a daughter, a son who was there and witnessed the fatality. And then she had a daughter that was a freshman at the University of Georgia at the time. So the Women's Resource Center came to be because there were a number of people that were really concerned in DeKalb County about what are we going to do about domestic violence? We need something here. So a task force came together of judges, nurses, social workers, people who had some firsthand experience, hands-on with domestic violence. And then they decided with the $10,000 grant to start the Women's Resource Center. At that time, it was called the Women's Resource Center of DeKalb County. Now, I guess maybe 10 years later or so, we changed it to Women's Resource Center to end domestic violence. So that happened a year later, June 5th, 1986. So for 36 years, we've provided services for over 100,000 women and children who have been fleeing and dealing with domestic violence. We are so honored to still be here and doing this work and to have the very profound impact that we've had over the years. We know we have saved lives, we've lost lives, but our resolve, our fortitude has never wavered, and we are here for the long haul, for the long run. And we've been able to do that because we've had friends like you who stood by us as we've been doing this work over the years. So thank you very much for, again, choosing us, and Amber is going to do a deeper dive into the work. Thank you very much.
Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. So Jean mentioned that Gwendolyn Ann Turnbow was the woman who was murdered by her husband that led to the founding of the Women's Resource Center. What she didn't mention is that Gwendolyn's daughter, who was away at the University of Georgia, grew up to be Natasha Tretaway. She was a U.S. Poet Laureate under the Obama administration during his first presidency. She was the Poet Laureate of the state of Mississippi, and she recently released a book called Memorial Drive, both as an exploration of her memories of her life and her mother's life, and an ode to her mother, because Memorial Drive is where their apartment was, where her mother was murdered. So that was just down in DeKalb County. So she continues to be a part of our work. She very much continues to be a supporter of Women's Resource Center. We honored her at our event that Jean mentioned that we had a few months ago. And so if you're interested in learning more about Gwendolyn's story and the legacy that she's left in this world, you can check out at your local library or purchase at your local bookstore a copy of Memorial Drive. And this is the photo that's on the cover. It's a photo of Gwendolyn and Natasha. So I'm going to briefly talk a little bit about what domestic violence is, just so you have an idea of what it is, what the population is that we're working with. So our definition of domestic violence as an advocacy agency is a pattern of behaviors that one partner in a relationship uses over time to exert control over the other partner. So that can come in a lot of different forms. That can look like physical violence, that can look like sexual violence, that can look like financial abuse, financial control, emotional violence, put downs, just making sure that the other person knows that they aren't as valued in that relationship. And then in different populations, it can you can use whatever means one partner might have to control the other partner. So for example, if one partner is an immigrant, their partner might not allow them access to their green card, or might not fill out the paperwork they need to immigrate to the United States legally. If a partner has a disability, their partner might withhold access to their hearing aid, not let them use their wheelchair, not give them access to medication that they need. So depending on what is happening in that relationship that one partner might be able to use to control the other partner, that is the definition of domestic violence. It can look very different in any relationship. But primarily we're talking about one partner using a pattern of control over time to keep that other partner feeling trapped in that relationship. I'm going to show you a quick video of a woman who's used our services, just so you can kind of get a sense of who we are, how domestic violence impacts the women that we're serving, and then I'll talk a little bit about the many programs that we have that your giving through Cathedral by Design will be able to support.
My name is Tamara Waller. I always tell people that when you become a mother, a lot of things change. Things that you say that you would never do, you find yourself doing because you want to make sure that your children are safe and they have the best of everything. And I remember going through it with my son's father. The biggest thing was my child, and having the fear that because he didn't want my child, that maybe one day he would actually do something to hurt my child. And that was the biggest thing for me, just feeling that he would hurt my child. I really had to one night just take a hard look at things and do something that was very, very hard for me to do, and that was ask for help. All I knew was I was coming to a shelter. So all I thought about was a shelter, from what people see on TV, but it was so much different. It felt like a home. Asher had a little friend there, and the both of them were just a couple of months apart. So, they're crawling around on the floor together. They were each other's buddy. So they both turned 1 year old there, so they had milestones together. And even to this day, they're still connected to each other because of the care, the safety, and just the genuine feeling of family there. It made it feel like home for him. Even after I'd left there and I was in my own place, Tess connected with me, and again, connected with me at a time that was so crucial for me that I didn't even know that I needed. It was just like another godsend, working with me on budgeting, and allowing me to be vulnerable with my finances. Although I was in the financial services industry for a profession, there were still things that I needed help with, just coming through what I had gone through. And she really, helped me sit down, look at my budget, work through things and work through my finances. Domestic violence isn't just about physical abuse, but it is just as much emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and financial abuse. Those things that I was going through that oftentimes are the precursor to physical abuse that a lot of people overlook, and they just don't think that those things are abuse, so they don't reach out for help, and thankfully, I actually reached out to help when I didn't even know that that was the help that I needed, and that was the help that saved me.
So the way Tamara first found out about us was by calling our hotline. And that's the way, are we getting an echo? I think it might be where I'm placing my phone. We're still getting an echo? Okay. The way that many people find out about our services the first time is by calling our hotline. We do have a 24-hour hotline that can be reached anytime, day or night. Someone's always there to answer the phone. And callers to our hotline, sometimes they just need emotional support. They want to figure out, is the relationship that I'm in right now, is this normal? Is what's happening here something that happens in a lot of relationships? Am I right to think that something is unusual here? Am I right to feel afraid? Sometimes we have women who call our hotline who know exactly what they need, whether that's food or clothing, financial assistance, shelter. Sometimes it's family members or friends who are calling because they say, I'm worried about my sister. I'm worried about my niece. I'm worried about my coworker at work. I'm seeing these things. How can I have that conversation with them about what may be going on in their life? So again, our hotline is reachable 24 hours a day for anybody who needs us, whether you're experiencing domestic violence, whether you've left that relationship recently, whether you think you may have a friend or family member or colleague who could use our services, or you just want to know how you can help. You can call our hotline 24 hours a day. A lot of times when people think about domestic violence organizations, the first thing they think about is housing programming. They think about an emergency safe house, which is where someone can go if they need to flee in the middle of the night, or if they're afraid, well, if I go to my mom's house, he knows where my mom lives. I don't want him to come after my mom. Or, if I stay in the house that I'm in now, even if I ask him to leave, even if I change the locks, he's always going to know where I am. So we have an emergency safe house that has 32 beds for women and children and other survivors of domestic violence who may need to stay with us temporarily. And usually that's about a 90-day stay. We think about our safe house almost like triage. It's where you go for the baseline of stability to figure out where you're going to go next. So the safe house is where we help women stabilize financially, tend to physical injuries, tend to immediate mental health needs, get the kids in a place where they're okay, get hopefully a job or some kind of financial income, and then figure out where they're going to go next. And so usually that is into their own apartment. Sometimes that's into their own apartment that they are able to pay for on their own. Less and less is that true now because of the impacts of COVID. The COVID pandemic has really caused an affordable housing crisis in Atlanta. If you're following the news, this is not new information to you. But a lot of folks are coming out of COVID with a lot of housing debt. For example, the eviction moratorium was wonderful for not kicking people out of their houses in the middle of the pandemic. But now that that's over, there was no waiver of the rent that was due over that time. So if you owe $1,000 a month in rent and you haven't paid your rent for 12 months, well, now you owe $12,000 plus this month's rent and next month's rent. And if you weren't able to pay it over those 12 months, you're probably not going to be able to pay $12,000 now. So a lot of the women that we're working with who lost their jobs because of COVID, who have partners who wouldn't let them work at all, have partners who are financially abusive, are now in pretty dire straits when it comes to being able to find safe housing for their children in a place where they actually want to live. We don't want to send women with young children into places that are unsafe or that are dirty or in neighborhoods where they're not going to feel comfortable walking their kids back and forth to the bus. So right now we're providing a lot of housing assistance for survivors of domestic violence, a lot of rapid rehousing assistance. So if you have an income, we can pay your first few months of rent and your deposit to help you get into a new place. Or if you're probably not going to be able to pay the full amount of rent in a safe neighborhood, or you have some goals that you're working toward and another year or two of being able to work toward those goals is really going to make a significant difference for your family, then we can provide transitional housing support for up to 24 months. So in addition to our Safe House, we do have a rapid rehousing program and transitional housing program for families who qualify. Another huge part of our programming, and what I think really stood out to the committee that came and site visited us, is our programming for children. Our ultimate goal is to end domestic violence. We know that it's a lot easier to raise children right than to change minds once they're adults. And so we focus pretty much all of our prevention eggs in the children basket. The moms that come to us for services really want something for their kids. They want their kids to have a different life. They want their kids to have all of the wonderful choices that kids who haven't experienced trauma have. And so they come to us with their children and say, what can we do to change our kids' lives while we're here? And so our children's program runs after school during the school year. And we also have a violence prevention summer camp in the months of June and July. All of our services for kids are free. So the after school program, kids come back to the Safe House, they get a snack, we do homework help, we do reading, we do tutoring, and then we do programming. Over the summer, the entire months of June and July, kids are with us 8:30 to 5 o'clock every day. We actually had the camp this year at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church, which is in Decatur. They were so generous to offer us their space to hold our camp free of charge this summer. So we love the Episcopal Church. You guys are very generous to us. And during the summer and during the school year, we're concentrating a lot on social, emotional, and ethical learning with the children. And what that means is understanding your emotions and understanding what your body is telling you. So if my palms are sweaty, if my heart is racing, what is my body trying to communicate to me about what I'm feeling? And how can I make decisions based on what I'm feeling that are consistent with my value system, that are consistent with what I want for my life? It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to be worried or sad. All emotions are okay, but you get to decide what you do with those emotions. You get to decide what choices you make in your life. And so we're talking to the kids about how to get into what we call the resilient zone, how you get yourself, when you're feeling big emotions, back into a place where you can still feel those emotions and be okay with them, but make decisions based on the life you want to make instead of letting your emotions carry you into a decision that you might not be proud of later. So we're doing social emotional learning. We're also doing ethical learning. What is it what are your responsibilities as a person in this world? You know, you have the responsibilities to be kind and respectful to other people, and you have the right to expect kindness and respect from others. So how do you set your own boundaries around what feels comfortable to you? How do you communicate those boundaries? And then the ultimate fact that nobody else's pain or suffering is more or less important than your own pain and suffering. So you're allowed to set those boundaries and make those choices so that you're not harming others and that others are not harming you. And so that's a lot of the work that we're doing with children, as well as peace education. How are you solving problems in peaceful, productive ways? So the children's programming is twofold. It's helping kids overcome the trauma that they've experienced from growing up in a home with domestic violence, and then helping them learn how to manage their emotions and solve problems peacefully so that they can have healthy relationships now and in the future. Now when they're 5 and they have healthy relationships with their siblings, even though their siblings have divorced family, or even though their siblings broke their leg as a child. You can still handle that with your siblings. And then when you're 16, how do you handle that with your dating partner? And when you're 30, how do you handle that with your spouse? Another big facet of what we do is our legal programming. We have 4 legal advocates on our staff who, between the 4 of them, help process more than 2,500 restraining orders in DeKalb County every year. That's a lot. That's probably a lot more than a lot of the other domestic violence organizations in the state that we're seeing, just because DeKalb County is a big county. And also because we have a really great relationship with our court system that allows our advocates to be present for all the temporary protective order hearings. If you go to the DeKalb County Superior Court website and click on the button for filing a restraining order, the first thing it says is call the Women's Resource Center for help. And it gives our phone number and then the link to take it. So the point is that we can help walk domestic violence survivors through that process of filing a protective order to make sure that the judge gets the concise, accurate information they need to provide the safety protocols that are allowed. We're also present for their second hearings, which can be really scary because those are the hearings when a woman is there with her abuser. Right now, most of those are happening over Zoom, but it still can be a really intimidating experience. And so our advocates are there to make sure her voice is heard, to make sure that she feels confident in speaking with the judge, and make sure that she feels empowered to make sure her needs are met. We also provide additional legal advice and legal programming, but the biggest piece of that is definitely the temporary protective order process. Pretty much all the other stuff we do falls under the umbrella of our outreach program. So that includes support groups, and that includes what Jean mentioned, that all of our services for women and survivors of domestic violence who do not stay in their safe house. So not everybody needs that emergency housing programming, but if you don't stay in our safe house, you still have access to all of the same resources. You still have access to one-on-one planning, budgeting services, and financial education services, financial assistance, counseling, basic needs. So if you need help with getting your kids' school uniforms, if you need to get your locks changed, if you need car repairs so you can get back and forth to work. Right now, since before the pandemic, I want to say in 2019, we allocated about $45,000 a year to direct financial assistance for survivors of domestic violence. Last year, we allocated $450,000 to direct financial assistance. Because that's what the need looks like right now. And so that's where a lot of our dollars are going, is really toward stability, homelessness prevention, and helping women who have made that really difficult decision to leave an abusive relationship feel like they can be safe and stable without that abusive relationship. Because if they're worried that they can't afford to feed their kids, if they're worried they can't keep a roof over their head, then it can be really tempting to go back to a partner who helps financially. And a lot of women will say, I'll take this if it means my kids are safe. So we don't ever want her to have that decision. We don't ever want her to feel like she has to go back because she doesn't have the resources to make it on her own. Because we're here in our community, like you guys are here, to make sure she doesn't have the resources. And the last big piece is community education. We come out and talk to folks like you. We go out and talk to Junior League, and we talk to high school and college students about dating violence, and we go to health fairs, and we talk to doctors about how to screen domestic violence in their patients, and we just talk to the world about what domestic violence looks like, what it is, how people are impacted, and how you can help. So you guys have helped tremendously by supporting Cathedral Giving by Design, because the proceeds are coming directly into our programming to help us help more families in the Atlanta area. Like Gina mentioned, the big thing that we're going to be doing is opening a community center. A lot of, since we started our safe house in 1987, a lot of our services have been really focused around safe house. But we can only serve 3,200 children at a time in our safe house, and we serve more than 5,000 individuals every year in our services total. So we want a space that those folks can come and gather and feel safe and feel welcome, a place where we can expand our children's programming, not just to the kids who are in the safe house, but to kids in the community as well, through after-school programming with that social, emotional, and ethical learning focus. So we have a space in mind, we have some plans, we have capital campaign committee, and we need your help to really launch this so that we can make sure we're serving and meeting the needs of as many families as we can in the Atlanta area. So that's kind of our formal presentation, but we know when we do something like this, folks always have a lot of questions. And so Gina and I are happy to entertain questions as a whole, but we also know that there are some questions we don't necessarily ask. So we'll also linger after this if you have any questions that you would rather ask privately. We're happy to answer those questions, happy to talk to you. But if anybody has any questions now about our work or the Cathedral Giving By Design event or anything like that, please let me know. Yeah. So right now, you want to get
our annual budget is $2.7 million. $1.8 million of that is government money, whether that's state money, federal money, or DeKalb County money. That $10,000 that they gave us in 1996 is grown to $150,000. And then the rest of the funds come from private donations to foundations, individuals, church groups. Our annual fundraiser that we have every year in the spring, which is supported by a lot of corporate donations.
Yeah, so Julie asked about statistics. So the Centers for Disease Control says that 1 in 4 women in the state of Georgia will be impacted by domestic violence at some point in their life. So if you've got a congregation of 6,000, I'm not great at math. So say half the congregation is women, that's 3,000. 3,000. So theoretically, 750 women in your congregation have been impacted by domestic violence. We never go to one of these without somebody coming up afterwards and saying, I experienced domestic violence, or my sister experienced domestic violence, or I lost an aunt to domestic violence. So we know that about 15,000 kids in DeKalb County witness domestic violence every year. 90% of the kids who are in homes where there's domestic violence are direct witnesses of domestic violence. Kids who've experienced domestic violence hit quite a number. We very rarely have kids who come to our safe house who have fewer than 4 ACEs. So it's things like domestic violence, a parent who has a mental illness, which we know that domestic violence causes a lot of trauma responses, including anxiety, depression, PTSD. So they often have a caregiving parent who is grappling either at the moment or with a long-term mental health diagnosis. family member who's incarcerated. So if their parent is arrested for the domestic violence, divorce. There are a variety of adverse childhood experiences that really stack up. And the more adverse childhood experiences you experience as a child, the worse your health outcomes are likely going to be as an adult. So that's everything from heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer, all of the major things that doctors are looking for. So one of the reasons that we focus so much on our work with kids is because adverse childhood experiences definitely can have a negative impact on people. But if you have enough markers for resiliency, if you have people in your life who care about you, if you have programming that helps you overcome that trauma, then you can really stop a lot of that stuff in its tracks and stop a lot of those negative health impacts in their tracks. Are there other specific statistics? I do know that in DeKalb County, if you call the police to report a domestic violence crime, it goes to prosecution about 9% of the time. So really what we're looking at when we're looking at ways to respond to domestic violence really is community response. A lot of people think, well, domestic violence is a crime. It should go through the legal system. And if that's something that the survivor is willing to pursue and that's something that's important to her, then we definitely want to give her the resources to do that. But a lot of times the criminal justice response is not going to be appropriate for everyone. And so really having a community of support to surround her, to help her, achieve whatever it is that she wants to achieve. If it's education goals, if it's financial goals, if it's housing goals, if it's goals around, stabilizing physical and mental health. There are always going to be goals around getting the kids in school, getting the kids what they need, getting the kids emotional and therapy support as well. Then, we really focus a lot on the plan that she makes when she comes into the safe house and, those pillars of stability that are going to help her remain in the community in a safe and stable way, free from relationship violence. Yeah.
Yes, I would say the most difficult piece we're dealing with right now is where families are going to go when they leave our safe house because of the affordable housing issue and the cost, as Amber mentioned. And so we're trying to get as creative as we can. We're able to offer financial support for up to 2 years for families while they, elevate their professional careers so they can earn more money and afford, better places to live. But it is a very difficult road that we're grappling with right now. And then the other question you had was, yes, there's a shortage of emergency housing. What we do, our shelter is full 99% of the time, and there's several families that we're often trying to find another place to go. So we may purchase a bus ticket or airline ticket to help them get somewhere else where they can get support. But most of the shelters in the metro Atlanta stay full almost all the time. I don't think we can build a big enough shelter, honestly.
And that's one of the reasons why we're focused so much on, staying in the safe house for a short period of time and then helping find permanent housing and continuing to provide those outreach services. So once the family is out of the safe house, that doesn't mean their services from us stop. So our outreach services are really what we're trying to grow because the need for emergency shelter is so great that we want to be able to bring in as many folks to the shelter as we can. So we really need to strengthen those outreach services so that we can continue to provide services once families are in their more permanent housing.
We do. We do. Yes. Other programs in the DeKalb area, in the metro Atlanta area, Open Doors, I know is one. The Decatur Community Ministries is another. And through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs with Continuum with Care Funds. I love the way you think. So far, that isn't happening. That would be a glorious thing if we could get them to do something like that. But so far, no. And the landlords are pretty insistent on getting that back rent. It's a big problem.
So one of the things that we are able to do, when we're working with women on financial education is, we do concentrate a lot on credit repair. And so if she has a landlord that is willing to settle, I don't think I mentioned that when women are in our programming, we do a match of their savings. So we do, for every dollar they save, we match 50%. So if she's able to save up, while she's in the safe house, if she's working and she doesn't have to pay bills because we're providing, meals and MARTA cards and all of that kind of stuff, diapers and everything while she's in the safe house, if she can save up some money, we'll match part of that. And then we really encourage women as much as possible to use that to pay down housing debt, to do credit repair. That used to be a much better solution than it is now, just because the amounts are so much higher now. So it used to be that if she could save $2,000, we would match $1,000, and then she pays off her debt and everything is great. Now the amounts are so much higher that we're having to match a lot of that with agency funds, which is great when we have them.
Mhm.
And if we can, so the responsibility has fallen on nonprofits a lot and organizations like ours to be able to help wipe out that credit card debt. But like if she owes $10,000 and the landlord will say, okay, I'll take 5, knowing that otherwise I'm probably not going to get anything. Then if we can help her come up with the 5, get that eviction off of her record, then that really makes a difference in her ability to access housing. But unfortunately, a lot of times it just comes down to cash.
And we have a number of friends here, 3 women in particular I can think of that will furnish every single apartment a woman moves into. They're our angels, and so it's furnished beautifully. The rugs, the lamps, the coffee cups, like they don't miss a beat. The plants, and we do several apartments a year, over 20 apartments a year. And through our now that we've been able to offer long-term support to families, when I first started doing this work, there was a 30-day emergency shelter. She would leave the shelter, going into an apartment, and that would kind of be it. But through the support, financial support we've received over the years, we're now able to work with families over a sustained period of time. And just in the last year, we've had 3 women that came out of our safe house actually purchase homes. Isn't that awesome? Hi. So our friends that I mentioned, they have a storage unit that they set aside for I don't know, there's this endless pool of furniture. I don't know how they find all this furniture all the time, but they have friends who they'll just put out a call or plea, and the next thing you know, like it appears. And sometimes they have more than they can use, and so we have a storage unit. They have a storage unit that they will put furnishings in, but they would love to meet someone like you if you want to help support that. We're always looking for friends to help us do that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you both so much from the bottom of our hearts. It is just the greatest joy and privilege imaginable to be able to partner with the Women's Resource Center, particularly in this time, as you were talking about, of such great need across the spectrum in our community and beyond. You talked a lot about housing, which I want to get us all back to that sooner rather than later, because it is a devastating issue here in Atlanta right now. I won't go down this rabbit hole, but I'm getting tons of phone calls all the time from people asking for help because our agencies are overwhelmed. Most don't have enough staff to support the need, even if money and resources are available. So thank you both for this opportunity, and thank you, Andy and Catherine. As I said, they are our go-to people here, along with Mary Mercer, our honorary chair, as we kick off this effort, and we'll be seeing a lot of each other, I know, in the coming year. And thanks to all of you for being here to begin to learn more about the ministry of the Women's Resource Center. And you have so graciously offered to stay behind, I've heard, and talk with individuals. I know some of us have to get on to the 11:15 service, but if you do have more questions, thank you for being so generous with your time to stay here and answer them. Let us conclude this official part of our time together now by saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.